Hey, in this video, I'm going to give you a quick tour of a couple of tools that you can use to code in Python. One of them is idle. The other one is PyCharm. So both of these tools in the R class are going to be installed on your computer, and I'm going to start by opening up idle. Now both idle and PyCharm are what are called IDEs. So an IDE, that stands for Integrated Development Environment, and what an integrated development environment gives you is it's supposed to provide all the tools that a programmer would need to do everything you want to do in programming. So for example, here I'll open up PyCharm at the same time so we can compare the two. Both of them are going to provide a text editor, kind of like we use brackets a lot to do web coding, so that's a text editor. There's also tools to run your code. An IDE will provide a built-in debugger. It'll provide tools to manage different versions of your code that's built in. It'll provide tools to collaborate with other people. So basically an IDE tries to bring together lots of different coding tools all into one place. Okay, so PyCharm, here I am looking at let's see here. Oh, I lost my code. Here's a PyCharm window, and PyCharm is basically kind of the professional's choice in many cases for doing Python coding. There are a lot more tools included, and that's a good thing. The downside of PyCharm is that it's really hard to learn to use. Like, you can see there are all these little icon buttons in here, and there's just lots of information on the screen, and I don't even have any code typed into the editor here. They don't give you a whole lot to go off of in the menus, so with PyCharm you really have to do more learning in order to use it well. With idle is the IDE that's built in and ships with Python for free. Idle is really very simple. You don't see all those buttons and toolbars everywhere. It's very easy to get up and running with idle. So you choose as we go through these lessons. If you prefer one or the other, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm going to start with idle today though. So first thing in idle is on a Mac, under the idle here, there's this preferences menu. You can change your color theme. Idle starts out with this white theme. I switched it to dark right away because that's what I prefer. And right away when you fire up idle, you're going to get the Python shell. So the Python shell is kind of like a JavaScript console. It's the place where you can type Python code in, and the interpreter will run that code. There's a Python interpreter plugged into this shell. So basically this command prompt that I have here only accepts Python commands. So if I type in some JavaScript here, we're going to see in a moment, I get an error message because, again, this isn't a JavaScript console, it's a Python console. If you want to print hello world to the console or the shell in Python, you use the command print, and you don't put the semicolon on there, and it worked. So what I'm doing here right now is just showing you a few things that you might be able to type into the shell. You can use it as a calculator. I encourage you to go ahead and open up idle and follow along and try to type some of these things in yourself. This one's kind of fun. See if you can figure out what it does. So that's the shell. Now the nice thing about the shell is that you can try out little code snippets and it'll instantly give you feedback. The downside of the shell is it's not a text editor. As soon as you leave it, whatever you typed in disappears. So if you want to save your code, you need to use a text editor. And since idle is an IDE, it provides that text editor for you built in. So what you have to do is create a new file under the File menu. And on this side here is the text editor. And again, it's really simple in idle. There's not a whole lot to look at. You'll notice that the tool the toolbar menu up top changes when you have the editor highlighted. If I have the shell highlighted, I get some different menus. You can see this is where we go for the debugger. But back in the editor, we've got stuff to use for formatting, editing text, and then running it later on. So I'm going to go ahead right now and just type in a for loop. And again, you'll notice that this doesn't look like JavaScript, and that's one of the first things we'll talk about as we go further in our lessons. What are the differences? Okay, so I just wrote a little for loop here. I'm going to go ahead excuse me, I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now when you get on a Mac, this little bitty drop down window, you want to hit this down arrow so you get the full thing. I have created a Python folder in my Coding 3 folder. And I am just going to call this example 1.1 dot py. So I'll save that, go ahead and run it. Invalid syntax, I've got a bug somewhere, and it highlighted it right here. Do you see that I don't have a matched parenthesis? So there, I fixed that. I'll save it. See the little asterisk right there? That tells me that it's not saved, so I'll save that quick and we'll try running it again. And there's my loop. It spat it out in the shell side and everything worked out. So that's your quick introduction to idle. We'll get deeper into the details in future videos. Happy coding.